And we welcome you to In the Circle Live as we get you set for Elimination Friday night. It's a new format, everybody. I'm Eric Lopez alongside Victor Anderson. The Women's College World Series has a new format. We have a new format, Victor. We're going to be on prior to most of the nights at the World Series, like tonight, and then other days, not necessarily every day, but most of the days. We'll be on, Victor, and we're going to recap last night. And we're going to look ahead to not just tonight, but obviously the big two winners bracket games on Saturday with this new format. And boy, do we got two major guests, don't we?
Yes, we do, my friend. Two individuals who know each other from back in the days playing for the Georgia Bulldogs. Coming up around 6:10, we're going to have Illinois Associate Head Coach Laura Trout will be joining us on the live stream. She knows a thing or two about taking on Northwestern. We'll get her thoughts about that. And then at the bottom of the hour, 6:30, we'll be joined by Western Illinois head coach Alisa Goler to be talking about the Women's College World Series and her thoughts on what she's seen.
Those two, by the way, played together on the 2010 Georgia Women's College World Series team. I have a feeling those two have opinions, and they might be chatty. Very excited to be talking a little bit.
A few opinions with that. Make sure you follow us on social media. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. A lot of things going on there. Mr. Lopez.
This is the only show, by the way, where we got former players and coaches coming on to talk about what's going on in Oklahoma City.
And Eric, and by the way, we got coaches buzzing Eric, telling us they want to be a part of the live stream. So
some have even suggested, even volunteered to go on late night if we decided to go there for the Champ Series, which I'm considering. We'll see.
All options are open. All options are open.
All right, let's begin. Obviously, the opening night Thursday, the results there, kind of a unique day. Not really the most competitive Thursday ever. Texas beats UCLA 7-2. First time ever Texas has beaten UCLA at the Women's College World Series. Most runs that Texas has ever scored at the Women's College World Series. Most runs that an unseeded team has scored at the Women's College World Series. They beat UCLA, jumped on them early, coasted to a 7-2 win. Oklahoma trailed for the first time in the postseason, trailed 1-0 in the bottom of the third. And then they scored 13 unanswered. And run ruled Northwestern 13-2 in 5 innings. Jordy Ball made her debut in relief to close the game out. We'll discuss that. And then in the nightcap, Florida beat Oregon State 7-1. The big story there is Oregon State was without Mariah Mazone. We don't know at the time as we're on right now, 5:33 Eastern. We don't know what her status is for tonight. And then really the best game by far, I thought, of the 4 games, Oklahoma State, Arizona. Great atmosphere. Oklahoma State wins it 4-2. They get a 3-run homer late off Hannah Bowen. And the Cowgirl Maxwell was fantastic, even though she gave up her first earned runs of the postseason. But Oklahoma State wins, part of a record-breaking session 2, by the way, over 12,000 people there at the stadium. Your thoughts, Victor, from day one?
Well, Eric, the biggest thing I feel is it was a good opening day for the Big 12. Going
3-0 for the Big 12 in day one, 0-3 for the Pac-12.
Yeah, big day for the Big 12, especially with Oklahoma State closing things out, knocking off Arizona in the nightcap. The interesting thing I felt, Eric, is the pitching. You got Haley Dolcini, who had a strong opener versus UCLA. You had the return of Jordy Ball coming in at mop-up duty, which is huge for Oklahoma if they want to continue their quest to win back-to-back national championships. Natalie Lugo coming in relief for Kendra coming in relief. In Florida, another relief performance. Tremendous. And then we mentioned Kelly Maxwell closing things out for Oklahoma State. And now with the change in the format, you got UCLA, Northwestern, Texas, and Arizona, and Oregon State having to turn around, especially Arizona. That quick turnaround, now playing for your season this evening, especially with UCLA, because of the 4 teams that lost, actually take out Northwestern because Oklahoma did.
Northwestern played well for 3 innings.
Play well.
But Oklahoma is Oklahoma, and I've said this before. Oklahoma is like Mike Tyson in a way. When they hit you, man, they really hit you. You just don't know. It just goes quickly. but I think I know where you're going to say. You were disappointed. You were disappointed with UCLA of the 4 teams that lost.
Of all the teams that lost yesterday, because Oregon State, you kind of have to put the asterisk on it with Bazone not being available, and we heard some reports about the reason why she was not available.
Which we won't talk about. We're not going to talk about.
Right, exactly. We're not going to speculate about that. Northwestern dealing with Oklahoma being Oklahoma. I think the most stunning loss was UCLA. Texas punched them in the mouth, and they could not get back up. It was the equivalent in terms of how it happened to Mike Tyson, where he got knocked down by Buster Douglas. Him on the floor looking for his mouthpiece. That's how UCLA looked yesterday when Texas jumped on them early. And and if not for a bad call by the umpire, should have been in run rule territory. But nonetheless,
Kelly Inouye Perez did not make any excuses. She just said Texas executed, UCLA didn't. But I did bring this up prior to the World Series. 12 p.m. Eastern start time, 9 a.m. Pacific. I think Texas had an edge there.
Eric, before you expound on your point, we've always seen over the last few years, the Pac-12 always gets stuck in that first game, 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific game. And it's not a real surprise that we see those Pac-12 teams in that opening game lose and fall into the elimination game later on that tournament.
Now, what's interesting, let's go over the new format for those that are not aware, because some people are chiming in already about it. Nolan Carney, in fact, saying the new format is so weird. I don't know if it's weird. It's just we're always accustomed to something that's been going on for a while. Now, when there's a change, you're kind of like, oh, that's a little weird. So Northwestern will play UCLA coming up in the elimination game, followed by Oregon State and Arizona as the nightcap. Then on Saturday on ABC, 3 o'clock, Oklahoma and Texas. Victor, this could be maybe the most watched non-national championship series, World Series game ever, when you consider the draw that Oklahoma is and the draw that Texas has become. As I've updated on Twitter and Eric Lopez-Elo, Texas and Arkansas, game 3 was the most watched regional or super regional telecast of all time. In fact, Texas has been part of the 2 most watched super regional games, game 3 against Arkansas, game 3 against Alabama, both over 1 million viewers. I expect Oklahoma, Texas to maybe draw over 1 million. We'll see what the final number is, but that's a big game. And then Oklahoma State and Florida on Saturday night, primetime, as they like to say. That's that's a heck of a winner's bracket game. And I got to be honest with you. The more I think about it, Victor, why shouldn't the teams that win on Thursday get a day off and be rewarded and play Saturday instead of the losers taking the day off? I know the theory is back then was, hey, you had to play twice on Saturday and then play again on Sunday. But I've been at the press conferences, Patty Gasso even said she kind of, she felt like last year the advantage they had was they can regroup having that day off coming out of the losers bracket. Much harder now for the loser. At least that's the perception. Your thoughts?
And plus, in a true double elimination format, Eric, it gives credence in ways, it gives importance to stay on the winner's side of the draw. You get rewarded to winning your opening game as opposed to if you win, like last year, you win your opening game, you had to play Friday night and then turn around, you play Saturday night. So you don't really get a full 24 hours.
Well, and I can tell you from a television standpoint, I think this will pique the audience more. And the reason I say that, if the winner's bracket games was tonight, it would be on ESPN2. Tonight's games are on ESPN2. The numbers are going to be down because of that, because ESPN's carrying game 2 of the Eastern Conference final between the New York Rangers and the Tampa Bay Lightning. I don't know if people are aware of this. Game 1 of the Rangers Lightning, 2.5 million viewers. It is the most watched hockey game on cable history. So,
and that record might be broken tonight.
I think that the longer that series goes, it's only going to go. So now instead of going head to head with that, you've got this ABC window on Saturday. I actually think the winners bracket games on Saturday are going to be a big TV draw. So you're going to lose some tonight, perhaps eliminate, but you're going to gain on Saturday and then Sunday with this new format. We'll see. We'll see how this plays out. So we'll discuss that. All right, let me get to some of the questions. A lot of questions. Let's see. Steve B says either Around the Horn or PTI was crying about having home field advantage today again. I would assume that because considering PTI just started, I would assume it's Around the Horn that was complaining.
Yeah, likely Around the Horn.
You're the guru of both of those shows, Victor. And I don't understand why people are really that bent out of shape. The Golden State Warriors had home court advantage on Thursday night against the Boston Celtics. What happened to that?
And they had a double-digit lead, too.
And they lost. So I don't know why this is continuing. I don't understand this. I mean, I understand it. They feel that Oklahoma and Oklahoma State have an advantage being in Oklahoma City, but it's not like these teams win every year. It's just kind of weird. Like somebody has to have home field advantage no matter what the championship is.
Hey, for those of you who are in the chat, if you can let us know which panelist from the West
was
Coast
it Bill Plaschke again?
I have a feeling it is. Someone please check on the feed. Eric's checking it now. I have a feeling it was Bill Plaschke who
it's definitely not PTI. I'm looking at the rundown. They talked NBA Finals.
It's got to be Around the Horn. Because I need to know. I need to know who was on Around.
Michael Wilbon clearly hasn't recovered from the Northwestern run roll. He's not even on the show. J.A. Adande, another Northwestern alum, give him credit. He is sticking up for the Wildcats here today on PTI, unlike Wilbon, who has disappeared.
Wilbon's an Arizona guy right now.
I don't think Golden State.
Steve B said it was Bill. Hey, Steve, could you relay a message to Mr. Plaschke? Where was that home field advantage for UCLA was really getting run ruled by Texas yesterday?
Wow.
I mean, what do I know?
Wait, which episode is he watching? I got Kevin. Who was it that he said that it was?
He said, Steve B said Bill Plaschke. But I want to make sure we're talking about today's episode.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's not today's episode.
I know Plaschke talked about it on the episode earlier in the week. So we're just trying to confirm who was on the show today.
Sarah Spain, Kevin Blackistone, Woody Page is still there, the icon. Woody Page.
Sounds like Sarah Spain brought it up.
And then Israel Gutierrez.
Sounds like Sarah Spain. Sarah Spain's another one who likes to bring up that Oklahoma has a home. Look, I
don't mind Sarah. At least she talks women's sports, so I'm okay.
Yes, she does. We
gotta get her on at some point.
Yes, we do. We love Sarah Spain. We love Sarah Spain. She's tweeted us multiple times.
All right. Look, all right. I have PTI on. I'll let you know if J.A.
Hold on. I'm just gonna say this right now because I've been talking about it for like the past few days, and I'm kind of sick and tired of it.
Wow.
Look, Oklahoma City has embraced the Women's College World Series, similar to what Omaha, Nebraska has done for the Men's College World Series. Now, the NCAA should make Oklahoma City go full out, roll out the red carpet for softball like they do for baseball.
If Bill Plaschke or the critics want to move it, spend hundreds of millions of dollars to build a softball facility, right?
Yeah. The key, you just said it, softball facility. Because all these people talking about they want to move it around, they're going to move it around to baseball stadiums with temporary fencing. That is not how you grow the game.
All right. I don't want to dive into that.
We'll stop that.
Yeah, I want to talk about the on-the-field stuff because people have questions. Let's discuss. I don't know if you're able. Can you put up my tweet with the TV numbers?
I will see what I can do. I will see what I can do, sir.
While you do that,
yes.
Let's talk Northwestern tonight here. We're going to have some guests on to kind of analyze it more in depth, but what are you looking forward to seeing in tonight's loser elimination games? Northwestern, UCLA, I think it's enticing. There was a rematch of Clearwater when Northwestern won on the walk-off and really announced themselves as a player in the national game this year. I would argue that it's ironic these two are going to play because I think Northwestern really made a statement in Clearwater when they beat UCLA in the walk-off, which was also the game that Aaliyah Jordan got injured and missed the rest of the year, as Kelly Inouye Perez brought up in the postgame as she was pushing for the 2 bags at first base.
We all know who Northwestern's going to throw. It's going to be Danielle Williams. Who does UCLA throw? Because Ferramo and Acevedo, neither of them looked good yesterday.
Well, we forgot they haven't. That was the first time Megan had pitched in the World Series. Remember,
she wasn't available last year.
Yeah. So I think they'll be better today based on that alone. But I'm fascinated by that. And then Arizona and Oregon State are familiar with each other from the Pac-12. I asked Caitlin Lowe in the postgame, does that help? The fact that you're familiar with each other in a quick turnaround. She did acknowledge, yes, that will help in the process in that matchup. So I'm intrigued by the two matchups. Which one of the two are you looking forward to the most, Victor?
I'm going to say I think I'm more intrigued by Oregon State simply because how does Arizona respond after that tough loss last night to Oklahoma State? And subsequently, Oregon State, they led Florida early last night, and then the Gators just used small ball to put the Beavers in a hole that they couldn't climb out of. Whichever team gets off to the best start today, that's going to be the team I feel will come out with the victory. And it's a shame that one of these two tremendous stories, either Oregon State or Arizona, will be ending tonight. I'm
going to tell you what I'm rooting for. I hope Mariah Mazone is back. I would hate if she misses think about this. She's carried that Oregon State program.
Yes.
And now she could potentially miss the World Series. We don't know that. She missed Thursday night's game. Tim Walton even said he didn't know about it until the lineup card. Because I think the shocking part wasn't that she didn't start pitching because
she wasn't even there.
And Laura Berg kind of downplayed it. She did a very good Bill Belichick impression, which makes sense. She's a big Patriots fan. So she very well. But I hope she comes back. She needs to play here in the world. I just hope she's okay and everything works out and she plays, because that would be really kind of a bummer if she, carries this team to the World Series and yet doesn't get to play for whatever reason is going on.
Yeah, I agree. By the way, Eric, I do have the numbers.
This came out a little bit while ago, and this has been a hot topic you and I have discussed on the podcast, Victor. How is the Women's College World Series going to do? And I'll be the first to acknowledge I was skeptical with the NBA Finals, Stephen Curry and the Warriors against the Boston Celtics, the Stanley Cup playoffs. I mentioned the numbers earlier, red hot. I didn't think, the field not being so strong, maybe an anticlimactic Oklahoma feel to it. Well, I'll eat crow. I was wrong. At least for Thursday, I was wrong. Really strong numbers as you look at the numbers here, Victor. Very impressive numbers with Arizona and Oklahoma State, 842,000. But look at the key demographic. 18 to 49 had a 0.25. That was the number 2 cable show on Thursday night in the entire television, behind only the Stanley Cup playoff game on cable. Northwestern and Oklahoma did 901,000 viewers. Oregon State, Florida did over 900,000 viewers. Texas and UCLA, I know that looks like a low number, and it is, 632. You know what was the most watched noon Women's College World Series game prior to Thursday, Victor?
What?
It was last year. Oklahoma and JMU drew 620,000 in that noon slot. So Texas UCLA technically is the most watched noon Eastern slot time at 632. Arizona, Oklahoma State, Northwestern, Oklahoma, and Oregon State, Florida, they were all top 5 cable programs. The average for the 4 games were 819,000 viewers, which breaks last year's record of 755,000, which was the most watched day 1 in Women's College World Series history. So a great start for the Women's College World Series from a TV viewership, Victor.
And Eric, it's not really surprising that you had session 1 and session 2, both set new records for those particular sessions. You have television ratings exceed the numbers for record-breaking last year. And it's only going to get, I could only imagine what tomorrow's numbers are going to be. Because when they made the move to put 2 of the Women's College World Series games on ABC, linear TV, you were hoping to have this exact scenario in mind. You have Texas and Oklahoma playing in the ABC game on Saturday. And then depending on how the bracket plays out on Sunday, which we'll bring up shortly, you could have a possibility in that Sunday game. You could have Oklahoma State versus UCLA or Northwestern in that Sunday game, 3 o'clock on ABC, which could be, and here's the other thing, that can serve as a lead-in to game 2 of the NBA Finals.
Oh, that's a great point, Victor. That's incredible. That would be a monster day for ABC. That could be, I mean, I'm telling you're right. You're right. This ABC move could be significant for this sport. That's a heck of a point. I forgot about the Sunday aspect with the NBA Finals tipping off a little earlier on that night. Let me ask you this. Have I been reading this wrong this whole time about the TV World Series numbers? Because I thought with the finals it would hurt the softball, but according to reports, the NBA Game 1 finals only did about 11.5 million. I don't know if that's I'm not reporting that, but other outlets are. If that's the case, that's not a high number. I think a lot of people expected a higher number for Golden State Boston Game 1. Is it perhaps that I've read the room wrong in that maybe the NBA is getting hurt by people tuning into softball instead of the other way around? Because I thought that would get a bigger number in the NBA final. Now, some people have suggested that maybe this generation isn't as invested in a series. In other words, they're not watching the series from game 1 to game 6, that they'll pick up the series later. You have any theories? You covered this.
There are multiple factors that really go into this. The first thing is that people don't watch the game as much on television, standard traditional television. They watch it on their laptops, they watch it on their phones, they watch it on their tablets. And they don't watch the whole game. They'll jump in at certain points. So they'll watch tip-off, or they'll watch the start of the second half, or if the game is close, they'll really jump into the fourth quarter. That's why you see those peaks that we talk about in television at certain points in time. Those numbers are higher than the average rating because, the game's competitive. There's something going on. Let's just jump in and watch and see what happens. It's going to be fascinating to see how the numbers for softball tonight compared, one, to what the numbers were last year when it was the winners' games, and secondly, it being on ESPN2 and competing with the Eastern Conference Finals with Tampa Bay and the Rangers.
I agree. And by the way, so now other outlets are saying that don't jump to conclusion on the NBA Finals numbers, as that with the again with their new format they're using with out of homes numbers and stuff like that. That really Monday morning you'll have a better feel for how the NBA Finals Game 1 did than the initial fast quote unquote number. We're talking TV dorky number stuff here, but the point is softball is off to a good start and could potentially have a historic weekend. If they get good games, though, Victor, will we get good games? I feel like we're due for some close, exciting games. We had the one good game on Thursday. Which of the two winners bracket games do you think? Because that's the thing. Can Texas push Oklahoma? They were one of the two teams. Trust me, they remind everybody. They beat Oklahoma earlier this year. Can they push Oklahoma? Can they upset them? I think we both agree Oklahoma State, Florida on paper looks just delightful.
That's gonna be a fun matchup.
But honestly, can Texas and Oklahoma deliver on ABC from as far as on the field?
They're banking that it can, and I think it will. I think the Texas offense has really found itself. They're not intimidated by that being on a big stage, and beating Oklahoma definitely helps them with that. The thing that's gonna be so fascinating, Eric. Texas already beat Oklahoma. Granted, that was in Austin. Granted, that was when Oklahoma had already clinched the series. But yet and still, Patty Gasso is letting everybody know, because the Sooner fans are already letting the players know enough as it is on social media, that, hey, this is the one team that you can extract. This is the one team, one of the two teams you can extract a revenge on for beating you this past season. The other one, of course, Oklahoma State in the Big 12 championship in Oklahoma City. So Oklahoma here's the interesting thing. Oklahoma will be the visiting team, so they're going to bat first.
Oh,
So
that's stupid nonsense. Oh, Lord. I hate this.
hey, look, I don't make the rules. We just talk about the rules
How
as we
is
go
this
along.
still in existence? It's the dumbest thing ever. Like, the higher seed should always be the home team. This bothers me more with regionals and super regionals when the home team has to be on the road. Like, give me a break. But anyway, go ahead.
Yet and still, that notwithstanding, if you're Texas, you have to limit Oklahoma to, if you limit them to a run in the first inning, that's a victory. You cannot let Oklahoma put up a crooked number like a 3 spot or a 4 spot in the top of the first inning to get that Sooner fan base, which is already going to be juiced up as is, even more riled up. If you keep Oklahoma to a 1-0 game, or if you keep Oklahoma to a 1-run game as you go towards the middle innings where they had those coaches interviews and the game starts to get a little bit tighter, that's where Texas can thrive because they've been in those situations more frequently than Oklahoma. Oklahoma has had some close games. Remember that walk-off they had at Marietta versus Tennessee earlier in the year in California. But Texas has been in the fire in those types of games with more regularity than the number 1 Sooners.
Michael Pfeiffer chimes in. Texas has had the most impressive run in the tournament this year. That's a valid point. Winning the Seattle Regional, beating Washington, beating Arkansas in the Super Regionals, beating UCLA. That's a heck of a start. Ailey Dostini's playing at a much higher level. But I do think we have to bring this up. Jordy Ball made a return. Pitched in relief in the 5th. Gave up a run, but that was huge. You could sense the excitement in the Oklahoma dugout and the fan base. Patty Gasso talked about that in the postgame. As you know, Coach Gasso has said she wanted to get all her pitchers in postseason experience, get their feet wet. And I thought her coming in relief in a blowout was significant. I think that sounded like a message to everybody. Jordy Ball is back, and even Patty Gasso alluded to this in the postgame. You got to now prepare for 3 pitchers for Oklahoma. In Trout, Nicole May, and Jordy Ball. And I'm really interested to see how Oklahoma, what they decide to do. Do they start Jordy Ball? Do they use her as a reliever? Who do they start? I mean, now this brings a different element here. We wondered, would we see Jordy Ball? Well, we got our answer. She came in relief. And I think that was a message that, yeah, she's back and you better prepare for her.
Now, I can see, if you remember, Eric, when Oklahoma repeated in 2017, they had Paige Parker be the starter, and then you use Paige Lowry as your quote-unquote closer. I can see them doing the same thing potentially with Jordy Ball, depending on her health and how she's feeling. But honestly, you could interchange Ball with May and with Troutwine, whatever combination you want to use, as long as Oklahoma, those arms do what they need to do.
Dark Sprocket with a question for us, Victor. Question to Eric and Victor. Let's talk about the spirit displayed in the various teams' dugouts. They all have their own style, and I love it because we don't see it with baseball. Boy, ain't that the truth. I think that's one of the things that I think has attracted people to softball, to tuning in to watch softball that they don't on baseball. Has anybody even noticed that college baseball had started their regionals today? No, me neither. I don't think anybody cares about college. And, and it's funny, Victor, because you and I grew up in college baseball territory. I mean, we both have been to Coral Gables regionals in the past in college baseball, and I think it's shrunk. Now, they'll do fine TV numbers as the postseason goes on because they have lesser competition than they don't have a lot of competition by the time they get to Omaha. But it is interesting how softball has occupied and pretty much taken up a lot of college baseball space. And I think a big part of that is the emotion that softball brings to the table from the fan bases and the players in the dugouts, to Dark Sprocket's point.
Softball, we embrace athletes and teams that care. And softball players and softball teams have a greater spirit that we see on a regular basis than college baseball teams. Not to say that college baseball teams don't.
And you've called, by the way, both sports. In fairness, Victor is called college softball and baseball this year on ESPN Plus.
Yeah, and honestly, from my perspective, softball teams get more excited over big momentum swinging plays than baseball teams. At least that's the one I've seen on my.
I agree. No, 100%. I've made this comparison. I think college softball is the women's sports version of college football. It's intense. There's intensity, excitement, passion. Every play matters. Whereas baseball's more low key, even deal. Like they're there the whole day.
There's not as much. There's
no rah. Yeah, there's not as much rah there.
Except for Knoxville, Tennessee. There's a lot of rah sis boom bah.
Right.
But that's the exception rather than the norm.
People asking, should Oklahoma have waited for Jordy Ball to start a game? No, I'm going to tell you why. Patty Gasso has been consistent about this over the years. She said this on media availabilities, which, by the way, Austin boy, I cover every Oklahoma media availability. In fact, on Saturday, weather permitting, because here in Florida, we were expecting a tropical system to come down here and have rain drop on us. But if the weather's good and my internet's good, I'm going to be on with Onikono, Sean, the most diehard Sooner fan out there. I'll be on his watch-along for Oklahoma, Texas. I've been doing a few of those. And I called Oklahoma UCF Super Regionals last week for UCF. So I've seen plenty. I've seen enough of Oklahoma, honestly. I don't think Patty Gasso wanted Jordy Ball to make her postseason debut be a start. I think she wanted her to kind of get a feel for things. And what a better way to do it in relief in a blowout.
Exactly. You took the words right out of my mouth. Put her in a low-pressure, low-stress situation where she can get her feet wet. If she gets knocked around for a couple of runs or a couple of hits, hey, no big deal. The game is well in hand. But if she looks sharp and she has that stuff going like she did throughout the season where she got National Freshman of the Year, then that's bad news for everybody else. Right. So, if anything, Eric, that is a tremendous move for Coach Gasso because you give her the ability to come in low risk, high reward for Ball if you let her get that going.
Well, and this is a big stage. Avery Gels in the Florida postgame said it was a dream when she stepped at first base. She took a moment and looked around and like, wow, I'm here where I've wanted to be at the World Series. This is the biggest stage for a lot of these players, and it is important. I think it was important to get your feet wet early on there. This is In the Circle Live. We're going to be joined by Laura Trout here in a few minutes, Illinois associate coach. She knows a thing or two about some of these teams, as well as being at the World Series of 2010 with Georgia. Her former teammate, Alisa Goler, who was our guest analyst last year, Western Illinois head coach this year. She'll be joining us later on in the show. Victor, I want to get to a couple topics before we let you go. Mm-hmm. Big story on Thursday that broke. We kind of foreshadowed this with Justin. We warned him that something would break during a World Series game, coaching-wise, and it did. And that was Troy making their hire. And, boy, they go to the D2 level with a coach you know very well from Auburn Montgomery.
Yeah, Eric, and when I first heard this story break, I'm like, wow. Because I was kind of shocked about it and when it took place. And, of course, we're talking about Eric Newell, which you can see on xratingsoftball.com, getting hired to be the head coach of Troy. Coach Mullins left the program early in the season due to health issues, and then she left the program entirely at the end of the season. So now you have someone who knows about recruiting in the state of Alabama, who's been tremendously successful, and you see his record leading Auburn Montgomery for that transition to NAIA to Division II, made it to the D2 Women's College World Series this year in Denver, losing in heartbreaking fashion to Texas Tyler in an elimination game. Look, it's going to be interesting to see, one, how he makes that adjustment, coaching from D2 to D1. And secondly, where does Auburn Montgomery go as for their next head coach? Because that is a very prime Division II job. You're coaching
in
an
number
elite
one ranked team in the Southeast region for most of the year. And you thought had a legitimate shot to get to Denver and compete for the national title.
Absolutely. Absolutely, that did. And this is an Auburn Montgomery team coming off their best year, one of the best years in program history as a Division II program, winning the Southeast Regional, winning the Gulf South regular season and tournament championship for the second straight year. You have a lot of talent returning, and that's going to be one of the top jobs in Division II that's going to garner some interest. Now, keep in mind, you're coaching in the Gulf South Conference that has star power. Ashley McClain, West Florida. Thomas Macera, Valdosta State. Les Studeman, Alabama Huntsville. You're going to have to recruit against those schools and also trying to pluck those players who might be looking at a Troy, looking at a South Alabama, among others, Alabama State, and trying to convince them about the culture, the atmosphere of not just Auburn Montgomery, but being in Division II. So it's gonna be very fun, interesting to see where Auburn Montgomery and their athletic department goes in terms of trying to replace Coach Newell. And we certainly wish him all the best in his new venture taking over at Troy.
Yeah, I'll be very interested to see, do they go with somebody with Auburn ties, for example? Do they go with somebody with experience head coaching at D2? Do they go big name? It's going to be, how would you grade that job in Division II?
That's a top 5 job.
Wow.
Because of the recruiting, the conference you're playing in, and again, you're recruiting a core of a team who just won a regional championship this past year. So, of course, it's going to be an elite job to go after. The question is, who did they try and go after to take over for that program? That's something that we'll be following throughout the next few weeks as they begin their coaching search.
Do you think this is a trend where we're going to see more D2 coaches? We've seen this the last few years making the jump to D1. Do you expect to see others in D2 get a look and perhaps make the jump to D1 this offseason as jobs open?
It would not surprise me, Eric. Now, the situation will have to be ideal. Viola, who played for the national championship just 1 year ago. Nikki Regan, who was the head coach of Viola. She is a former Oregon Duck. When alma mater calls you saying, hey, we want you back as part of the fold, you're not going to say no. So all of those situations are going to be unique in terms of what will make a coach from Division II make the jump to Division I. And if it's worth to make that jump from Division II to Division I.
Obviously, some of the D1 jobs people are going to look at. Texas A&M is all eyes are in College Station. It's been reported by various outlets, speculated, not really reported, but for example, Warchant has discussed this on their podcast and everything. It's no secret. Texas A&M went after Lonnie Alameda, the Florida State head coach. It is believed that she turned them down to stay at Florida State. We don't have official numbers, but keep in mind, Lonnie had an extension last year at Florida State. Would not be surprised if she got a little extra revenue boost, which rightfully so. Trust me, it's going to be good money spent if you're Florida State to keep that machine rolling there and keep her happy there. So I think there's a lot of questions about Texas A&M. It's a big-time job. They're throwing a lot of money. They have the great facilities. But the early indication is that a lot of these coaches are using it more for leverage to get paid. Kenny Gajewski, got an extension after the Super Regionals. The belief is he's out of the mix. Some people think that A&M might be on their 4th or 5th option, whoever that is. That's where we're at. And we may not know. This reminds me a lot, Victor, of Texas in 2018. Remember, I was at Oklahoma City. We kept talking about on the podcast that Tim Walton was the hot rumor. People were bringing his name up. And then he got an extension right after the World Series. And we went weeks.
And
we heard
various renovations to KSP. So don't be surprised with Coach Gajewski's his extension and Lonnie Alameda rumored to say no, that they get some renovations done at their facilities.
Maybe. So my point is, we may not know, and I know people are asking. Fang Nai is asking. I don't think I was told last week that we might know who the A&M coach was by this week, by now, because A&M, I think, was their goal. I think they generally thought they were going to get Lonnie. They thought this was going to be a sequel to Jimbo Fisher, except Lonnie said no. And I think they wanted to drop this now
during the World Series
to show up Texas and Oklahoma. Didn't work. Now, I don't believe we're going to know who the Texas A&M head coach is until after the World Series. So, anyway, that's my thoughts on that. We'll get more into coaching stuff down the road later on. But, all right, give me your last thoughts, Victor, before we let you go. Give me your picks for tonight and the next 2 days, actually. Give me your 4 picks.
Northwestern,
okay,
Arizona, Oklahoma, Florida.
Okay, there you go. All right, you've got meetings to do yourself. You're a busy guy. We will not share the details of your meetings. It's important information. It has nothing to do with MJF or Tony Khan, though, correct?
I can neither confirm nor deny that is the case, sir. So I will see you later on, sir.
All right, sir. We're going to let you go. Victor Anderson's going to take off. But don't worry, ladies and gentlemen. Look who we got here. I'm excited to bring her in. She is the associate head coach at Illinois. She's played at the Women's College World Series in 2010 with the Georgia Bulldogs. One of our favorites, Laura Trout, joining us here on In the Circle. You're going to be helping us out, kind of break down the Women's College World Series because, well, you know a thing or two about this. How you doing?
I'm pretty good. How are you, Eric? Can you hear me?
I hear you good. I hear you good. Right. You hear me good?
I do.
Beautiful. Give me your thoughts on the first day on Thursday. What stood out to you?
I think we saw what everybody already knew. Oklahoma can open up a game really fast. So I think that's goes without saying. The best game of the day was the Arizona game. Couple of regulars. We played Arizona, so I'm pretty familiar with them. I wouldn't count them out just yet. So we'll get more on that when we talk about today's game, I'm sure.
Yep.
Let's see. Florida getting, hitting their stride when it matters. I think taking Virginia Tech down in Blacksburg I thought that was, impressive after going down bad.
12-0. Yeah, that shocked a lot of people.
Going down bad, but sometimes that's what it takes. You kind of get knocked on your butt a little bit when it matters. And then a team like that, a tradition like that, coaches like that, they don't really stay down very long. I think one of that was the game I didn't get to see as much. But every time I checked on it, Florida just put on more and more runs.
Yeah, they're clicking on fire offensively. I know Tim Walton has talked about that in the postgame. And obviously Oregon State, they didn't have Mariah Mazone, and we don't know what her status is tonight. We're not going to speculate what happened, but she wasn't available to hit or pitch, and that's the thing. She's one of the better two-way players in the sport. That had to affect him. Now, Laura Berg downplayed it. It said next player steps up, but this is the Women's College World Series here, and you're without your best player. It has to have an impact to some extent.
Absolutely. I mean, just, to make the run that they've had, it's a player like that who's a big part of it. But just from a coaching standpoint, it could have been anything. And you have to make sure the morale is still high. And who knows? I mean, they've been pretty tight over there, haven't we? Nobody knows what's. Hopefully we get to see her. And
I think that'd be great. I hope we see her because she's worked her tail off to get to this stage. Man, that would be a bummer if whatever happened causes her not to play. But we'll see what happens. I want to ask you overall about Northwestern because you know them very well. As you mentioned, a couple of the teams here tonight. Your thoughts on Northwestern? I thought they played well through the first 3 innings against Oklahoma, and then Oklahoma stuff happens, right? They're just so unique. And I'll ask you about Oklahoma's offense in a little bit, but how do you think they bounce back tonight? Quick turnaround, new format, losers bracket today instead of Saturday. Danielle Williams, we saw Coach Drohan take her out early in that game. Once they fell behind big, perhaps thinking, hey, I need to save her a little bit because they've had a wild postseason run, especially in that super regional against Arizona State. What do you expect to see from Northwestern tonight?
I expect to see a bounce back. I think Danielle Williams, she threw pretty much every inning of that super regional anyways, and you saw moments where it might look like it could get away from them, and she kept them in and kept giving them chances, and that's what she's going to do. When you have a changeup that's like devastating like hers, you always are going to give your team a chance. I think what you saw yesterday, like what I mentioned earlier, is you saw Oklahoma kind of they can let a game get away from whoever they're playing really fast, just because 1 through 9 they have the ability to put the game just, especially if you have a walk. I thought the zone was a little tight. I think when you're playing Oklahoma and you got a tight zone, you're going to struggle. It's going to be tough. You have to be able to get corners. You have to be able to make pitches. And I thought she did a really good job making pitches early on. And then Oklahoma's going to make adjustments. And that's what happened. They started to sit change up a little bit.
Yeah. No, they are. And you're one of the better hitting coaches in the sport with your resume. What is it about Oklahoma's? Because I got to call their super regional last weekend as the radio voice for UCF. So I locked in very closely. The thing that impresses me about them is you could throw a good pitch and they could still hit it where other teams don't. When you watch Oklahoma, somebody who knows the offensive game, what stands out from them from everybody else? Because it's like a major explosion. It's like a box. Like I've compared them to like a Mike Tyson. Like when they hit you, next thing you know, you blink and it's like 5-6 runs on the board. Absolutely.
I think you'll see a team that is 1 through 9. They're not going to get out the same way. Second time through the lineup, you're going to have something else because they're going to make those adjustments. If you kind of watch, now they could be doing something completely different, but it's what it looks like from my perspective. It looks like they have a pitch that they're looking for each time they go up to the plate, and they have no problem waiting for that pitch to come. Even if, you throw something else that they could hit too. So you don't see them off time a lot. You see them on time all the time. It's almost like you can't throw anything past them. I just think they're super disciplined. And that's what elite hitters are. They're disciplined when they're looking for pitches that they want. They're confident that if they let one go by, they're, no big deal. I know mine's coming. And they're confident in their timing. And like I said, you don't really see a lot of them out in front. You don't really see a lot of them. With 2 strikes, they'll start to kind of maybe, waste some pitches if that's not what they're looking for. But for the most part, they are on time. And then what I really see is that you have to, as a pitcher, you kind of have to have 3 pitches at least. Because 1, they're going to cancel out. 2, they're going to sit on. So 3, you can at least give them some mystery.
Well, that's a question. Like Haley Docini's had success against them. She'll likely go against them on Saturday. Can one pitcher slow down and contain Oklahoma? Docini did a pretty good job in Austin. Or do you think it's going to take multiple pitchers to, like Oklahoma State did in the Big 12 title game? How do you kind of contain this Oklahoma offense? That's going to be interesting to see how Texas does, seeing them for the 4th time. You would think there's a lot of familiarity, which might favor the offenses there.
I think on one hand, Texas is very familiar with them as well. They do have a little bit more, pitchers and looks they can throw at them, I suppose. But Texas does too. Texas has a few. Game 3 of that Fayetteville Super Regional, we didn't see Dulcini, and that's a really good offense too, Arkansas, I think.
Simpson pitched a heck of a game, the young freshman with the off speed against Arkansas, yeah.
And if we're going to say there's an offense that's close to Oklahoma, it's that Arkansas one. The Arkansas offense is pretty juggernaut. So I like the matchup because we saw what they could contain an Arkansas offense really well. It's going to take making your pitches, not necessarily, we can call the right pitches all day, but we got to make them. And then keeping them off balance. And then a zone's going to help. If they're getting a really tight zone, it's going to be tough. You got to be able to get corners.
Yeah. Let's bring in somebody very well, who's joining us a few minutes early, but that's okay. I think she's more excited just to hang out with you than me, but that's okay. One of the better hitters, All-American at Georgia, teammates. You both are teammates in the 2010. She's the head coach at Western Illinois. She was our guest analyst last year. She's back with us. Alisa Goler joining us. How you doing?
I'm great. You're right. I only hopped on because Laura was the other person.
I expect you two to dominate this show. This is personally a goal of mine was to hang out with the two of you. I haven't done it in person yet, but at least, this is the next best thing.
Everybody says in the recruiting drill that we're the two to hang out with. So
I've heard that's I'm working on it. This will do for now. All right, let me ask you this, both of you this, because you both were part of that 2010 Georgia team, which if you look at that lineup, top to bottom, is one of the better lineups maybe ever assembled. I mean, people. What was it? I mean, go ahead. You guys can read. What was the lineup? Do you remember? Who remembers the batting order that year?
Slopey, Wiggins, Goler, Sandberg, Razy, Hessen.
That's a lot of players that went on to play and had success beyond college, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
So that's pretty good. So when you both see Oklahoma's offense, do you see similarities there from that standpoint? Because your offense was just explosive, and Oklahoma clearly is as well. I'm curious if you both see similarities there in those experiences from having that dynamic of an offense.
Well, I think, sheer power numbers, they're obviously in a league of their own, right? And we are in a generation that very much values the long ball. So I would never even for a second try to compare ours to that because people will riot on Twitter.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just being honest. However, similarities I see, I think we were a team that at the time very much set the bar for having 1 through 9 all having, at least 5+ home runs. We were not able to have a lot of players pitched around because we had people that stepped up. So I think that kind of mirrors it. We did not have the luxury of having 1 to 2 run ball games. But they can have a bad day. If we had a bad day, we probably were not winning. But I mean, I just think anytime that you get more than your prototypical 6 players in the lineup, that's just almost unheard of at any level. And we were special that year because we had on any given day 8 to 9 people that clocked in, as she can tell you. That's probably as far as I go as far as comparing us. I don't need anybody getting mad at me over that.
No, but you had a good that offense is pretty good offense. I'm just saying. I mean, because you made a deep run. I think you finished Final 4 that year in the World Series. Were you Final 4?
I think we were 3rd.
Yeah, 3rd place finish.
UCLA
now, UCLA did win there with that was Megan Langenfield's team company.
Yeah,
pitched and hit.
Another great player.
Ball I've ever seen.
That's true. Let me ask you both as coaches about this because people have asked this question about Jordy Ball. She made her debut in relief. Some people are like, why throw her in relief in a blowout? Should you have waited for a blowout, maybe to start her and teams don't see her? Did you have any reaction to her coming in relief? Patty Gasso said in the press conference you wanted her to get her feet wet in that atmosphere, in that environment. I'll start with you, Coach Trout.
Yeah, that's what I figured. I figured they'd just get her feet wet. It's hard to say, that they're trying to gauge if they're going to call illegal pitches or anything because the umpire rotation could be completely different. But that could be something that you're looking at. But probably just get a freshman some, a little bit of, taste of the World Series, taste of the crowd in a situation that, was kind of already handled for the most part. What do you think, Alisa?
Well, I think all of our keyboard warriors want to act like it's probably her coming in because she's been hurt and they want to see if she can physically throw. When we as coaches know that we would never put an athlete in if we didn't already know the answer to that. Especially not in the World Series. Yeah, I think it was 100% the fact that the kid's been in the bullpen for a couple weeks. Let's give her a very, very, very easily handed situation based on the game. Who cares if she came in and gave up a couple hits? It didn't matter, right? And let's just see how she goes. Let's make sure that nothing, like pressure situations in any way sometimes they do affect you, right? Like you don't want to, if you've got somebody who's been in the bullpen that's coming back from injury, what's the most stress-free situation you can do to make them have confidence and feel great? That was it. I think it was like a no-brainer. I actually texted Laura when she came in, and I was like, oh, okay, here we go. I see what we're doing. So
that's pretty good. Let me ask you this, Goler. I asked Laura this earlier. What was your takeaway from day one?
I think that I think replay was probably the MVP of the day.
There were so many replays. Every time I looked up.
This goes to show you like how many years we've missed out potentially on changing the game in one way or the other without it. It almost seems archaic now to not have it. Like I was I would be like at other games or watching other games, and I'm almost like angry that we don't have the replay because we're just not there yet as a country with the resources and conferences to have it. But aside from that, I mean, I don't know. The World Series is just fascinating because you can have players that a week ago were absolutely dominating, and suddenly they show up, and as a fan, you shouldn't do it, right? But as a fan, you're kind of like, this doesn't even look like the same person I just saw. And it can be a good or bad thing. And I think you had some teams that just kind of capitalized on that. I don't think anybody showed up and didn't play the way people expected them to play. I mean, you really only had the one blowout game, and whether we like to admit it or not, with the way that OU offense has been, that could be every game they play. Maybe like that. So it didn't really matter who they matched up against. But, I mean, you've got coaches that know what they're doing, and you've got players that are used to competing at the highest level, doing their thing. Like, my takeaway is that we got to see good softball. It's really all you can ask for.
See, I kind of dodged the instant replay topic with Laura there since she had a unique experience with replay at the Big Ten tournament. So, which I texted her right away after that. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, Big Ten didn't have replay in the regular season. They only had it in the tournament. So that is an adjustment from a coaching standpoint. Whereas the SEC, I think, has had an advantage in that they've had it for the regular season. So they're accustomed to it, where other conferences are not as accustomed to it, correct?
Oh, absolutely. And the whole time we're getting a glimpse of it. I mean, obviously we're watching SEC games. You know, Goler and I played in the SEC. We're watching Georgia games when we get a chance to. And I feel like every time a replay happened, the umpires went to the coaches or the coaches came up to them and asked for kind of an explanation. And that was kind of my experience with it, was like, okay, well, we get an explanation, right? So that, you know, and that wasn't the case, but because the Big Ten hadn't done it all season, we went by the book, and you cannot ask about replay after that. So that's what happened. But it was an adjustment. It's definitely an adjustment. You have plays. I mean, statistically, a batted ball in a softball game, how many times does that happen? And that's always a chance for something that needs to be replayed. And it happens so often, and we missed out on so many of those chances. So it's really cool to see now. I mean, a leadoff runner in an inning is such a game changer. So that bang, bang, outer safe play at first to start an inning off, or, I mean, obviously even plays at the plate. It's such a momentum shift. And the fact that we can do it at the World Series now, it's at least, you know, that, the umpires are humans. So at least we know that the right call is being made for the most part.
For the most part. Wait, Goler, did you, I know you heard about it when she got tossed. What was your reaction when you heard?
I was cracking up. I honestly, if she tells me on air right now that this was not the case, I'm going to be offended. I had to been the first person she responded to, because I was texting it as she was being escorted off the field. And I was like, dude, you guys just started. What are you doing? And then she, you know, when she kind of lays it out, like, yes, there is, we all got the rule. We know how it is. And unfortunately, I think part of the problem is that, and again, like, to each their own on what they thought about this, but you think back to the Bama-Mizzou series when they arguably blew that call on the replay. That's why you get people that are mad, because it's kind of like, hey, if we've got this stuff, we better be making the right call 100% of the time. It's not a good look if you have all those resources with the cameras and you've got somebody at a central location and then you're not making the correct call. So I think that a lot of the umpires, because I was pretty much right after it, I think a lot of the umpires were on edge about that too. And and you know, that ties to it. But
well, you both bring up a good point about communication, because Mike White addressed this on Thursday. There was a controversial moment in the UCLA-Texas game, and people asked him about it, and they were trying to kind of bait him because obviously of what happened at the Big 12 tournament where he lost it. And
he took a lot of the shine from me.
Yeah, he did. People forgot about you a couple hours later. But it was interesting because he made an interesting point in the presser. He said the thing he appreciated about yesterday was that the umpires came up and explained what was going on in the whole situation, whereas that didn't happen, he felt, in the Big 12 tournament. That's what set him off, was he got no explanation on what was going on in the Big 12 tournament semifinal, and that's why he flipped out, literally. And he did get an explanation. He thought that the umpires were in control yesterday over that situation on UCLA, Texas. Isn't that what we all want? We understand that umpires are humans, but I think where people get mad is when umpires don't explain themselves, or like there's many cases, I'm sure you both have done this. A lot of coaches they'll come up and ask for help. Hey, why don't you ask for help on the umpires? And they say, no, I got that. I think that rubs people the wrong way. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's all we ask for. Communication and getting it right, because it's not about us. It's about the players, and, something that they may or may not have earned being taken away from them or things like that. So it's communication and getting it right. If I'm wrong, I'll be glad I'm wrong, as long as it's right.
Well, I think one thing I have realized from watching this postseason is just how human an umpire is. And I think about last night, I was sitting watching that replay where the kid from Arizona made that beautiful throw to second base. You know what I'm talking about? And they went ahead and replayed it. And the umpire, you can see the umpire in the slow-mo actively scrambling to get around the shortstop. And I don't think he was out of position from the start. I just don't think he expected the bang, bang throw. So you can see him trying to run to move. And because of where he was at in that moment, because that kid made such an exceptional throw. I mean, I played 7 years pro. I don't know many people that even did that in football. Like, that was unreal.
She made it from the wall.
And you can see him actively doing it. And I'm sitting there watching, and I'm like, this is why we need replay, because that guy was not in the right position to make that call. He was behind the shortstop, and it really wasn't. I don't know if it was necessarily his fault. I haven't gone through umpire training. I think it's probably really hard knowing that one step in either direction can have you where it's at. And it's like, if we didn't have the replay, they're sticking with that call, which was his call of it being safe. And
the game is faster now, right? Aren't there better athletes? I mean, look, you both, accomplished so much in your careers, but I think you both acknowledge as coaches, the game is so much more athletic now and faster than it was, say, 10, 15 years ago, that whereas the umpire, maybe, that's hard, right? I mean, this is not just a softball thing. We see this in other sports where it's hard for a referee or an umpire to keep up with these athletes all over the field or the courts, depending on the sport.
So it's like, sometimes you're going to have stuff that maybe we don't agree with, and then sometimes you are just going to have the human error aspect of it that's completely normal like that. And I think that's what the replay has done, is it's really helped with some of that stuff. There are still going to be replay calls that are made that we are not going to agree with. It does not matter. That's just how it's going to be. And
we still don't know what obstruction is. I mean, we saw it.
That's a bigger issue. That's the fact that we don't have umpires across the country still that all know apparently what it is. But yeah.
Right, because there was a play on yesterday, right? And I think Laura, you tweeted out that by rule that was obstruction.
The way it was explained to us, we asked for clarity. So before we started training our kids this season, just because I want to know, I don't want us having a great play, and knowing we don't have big replay in the Big Ten. I don't want us making a play, getting it taken from us because they saw something. So we tried to get ahead of it. Asked the umpires preseason, explain obstruction. What should I teach my infielders? What should I, and the way they explained it was not what we saw yesterday. And no, obviously they didn't call it, and I'm fine with that. There was a great throw. I just think obstruction is one of the things that there's no way to consistently rule it. I thought with replay we'd be better at it, but to me, it's still 50-50. I saw the replay at the Georgia game in the SEC tournament at the plate where they took that away. And that's what I watched the day before I got tossed, which was also an obstruction call. And it was very similar situations, and one went one way and one went the other. It was not called the exact same way both times.
Yeah, that's the problem with how much coverage we have now. Yeah. On any given day, you pull up a different conference. Doesn't matter if it's my conference, anybody, it's not uniform throughout. Yep. And it's being exposed whether we like it or not. And it's the same with illegal pitches.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you have so many people that want to chime in, because we are getting the coverage now. Nobody is biased. Like, there's no bias anymore. Like, you could do split screen with 2 different games and have 2 people doing the exact same whatever, and it's not uniform.
Right. That's where some umpires are more aggressive in calling obstruction or illegal pitches. Some are not. You've mentioned the strike zone. I mean, this is the other thing. This is not just softball, but baseball. And I still don't know how we got to this point, but we've allowed umpires to have their own strike zone, where instead of why don't they just follow what the textbook of a strike zone is? But Kenzie Fowler, who you both played, know well, and she's talked about this. That's part of the problem, is there's a lot of subjectivity, but also because there's so many rules and kind of gray areas, you're leaving it up to the umpires. And I know Mike Condrea suggested maybe the issue is there's too much, that maybe we should simplify some of this stuff, and that would make it easier on everybody. What's both your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. That's why I think obstruction did not exist when we played. And I don't remember it being a very common thing for people that, like, we didn't get hurt. I never thought it was an issue, so I don't know why obstruction was ever brought to the table. This is like a rule that came out in the last 10 years. Am I correct? So it's just one of those where I'm like, it's already hard to enforce. It's a fast game. It's, the wording of the rule is tough to be uniform with. It's not as simple as black and white is out and safe. So why do we have it? It's, like I said, it's not a safety issue. If it was a safety issue, why don't we have a safety bag? But we'll talk about that another day. But it's just one of those rules. It's like, why do we have so many things for these umpires to enforce when really let's get the basics right. Let's get the out and safe, balls and strikes right, and go from there. And we want to speed the game up, but we got all these rules. so we got timeout, limits and things like that. But I've seen plenty of timeouts this year that it took the umpire longer to write the timeout in their book than the timeout actually lasted. So it's just so many rules. I'm just like, what are we doing? Let's just play softball. But I'm old school.
I get the obstruction thing. I think where I just personally, from having watched plays the last couple of years since it was, I don't know what we want to call it, since it's been more strictly enforced, since the verbiage changed, whatever you want to call it. I think that they're afraid to make the rule too detailed, because then it's no different than like when you're a coach and you have a rule book, right? Like, you need stuff, but you don't want it too detailed because then you can get in trouble for it. But if you don't have it, then you're not. And I think it's a little bit of that. And the only part of it that really drives me crazy is the fact that there's the bang bang obstruction play, and there's the obstruction play where the kid's rounding the bag and the catcher's up the line waiting on the throw, and umpires want to pretend like those are 2 different things. And I'm like, well, per the rule, it's the same exact thing. We can't make up subset A and subset B when it's not there. And that's really just been my biggest thing, is I'm like, you've got to treat it like the bang bang one, where somebody's going, the home plate's covered and they're trying to go cleats up into them, to like we used to have to do. And that is just where it drives me nuts, because you get some umpires that try to justify it, and it's like, well, no, we don't have that justification, because that rule, they purposely made it kind of vague so they wouldn't get in trouble with it and be held to it. So it drives me nuts, because every fire crew I deal with gives me a different reason. And I'm like,
I get different explanations. I get different, when we asked the preseason, it was the base runner has a right to pick whatever side of the base they want to slide to. So the defender giving them a side of the base is still obstruction, because the base runner did not pick what side they wanted. So again, and then we've seen it called all different ways. It's just really hard, because I think the rule was written by somebody who, maybe didn't, I don't know, maybe they didn't play. It's really simple. If your feet are moving while you're catching the ball and they're not camped, it's probably not obstruction. If you're just camped in front of a base, it's probably obstruction. But we like to word it in a way that, like Goler said, it's really vague, so that we can just
very vague, which leaves it into interpretation, and somebody else have a different interpretation. I've learned 2 things here. Yeah. First of all, number 1, you 2 need to do a podcast. Clearly, like, you've both been on for 20 minutes. This is phenomenal. Like, you 2, like, you should replace me and Victor, honestly, on this podcast moving forward.
NIL is alive and well. Come to us with what you want to offer, and we can decide.
I don't think you need an IL.
I know.
That's
they can
true.
offer it to us if they want to, though.
So, yeah. Now, the other thing, I will defend Laura on this. The one thing when she got taught, you didn't even I was watching because I was literally watching the game. I couldn't tell that you even made a comment. Like you were just standing there. And in your defense, there are other coaches after a replay that were have been more demonstrative and stayed in the game. So unfortunately, I think you got picked on because of that, circumstances. I think umpires need to chill out a little bit too, because anybody on watching TV, nobody noticed. In fact, I remember the broadcast; they were like, "What's going on here?" And then next thing you know, they're showing you being escorted walking out. As I think I texted you like 10 minutes after Goler probably did, I'll defend you on that. That I thought that was an unfairly ejection, but you explained the rule. I guess by rule, technically. They
I think the umpire that gave me a warning first and went to tell the home plate umpire, and I think she forgot too, because then he was like, "Yeah, she has to be ejected." So it was really anticlimactic, but nonetheless took me out of I think it was the third or fourth inning of a game that we were still very much in.
Yes.
So I feel like that puts us at a disadvantage when things like that happen. I don't think unsportsmanlike behavior was
not even close. I mean, again, there's an example where there's a gray area there. I think that the intention of disputing a replay call is a coach, just staying on there and arguing. You see this in baseball a ton. And I think that's why they put that rule in place, is they're trying to move the game along, not have a manager or a coach in whatever in baseball or softball argue after a replay. I get that.
Absolutely.
That didn't happen in your situation.
No, and honestly, the game could have, proceeded because everyone's still getting situated again. And I kind of just asked her, like, please tell me what we can do as defenders, because last time we did that, we got called for obstruction. But it was, yeah.
Goler, I feel like you would have gotten your money's worth. If you got tossed, you would have gotten your money's worth.
I'm not able to do that. I only have one assistant.
Wow, there we go. Wow.
Where I would get my money's worth, if you want me to be, I probably shouldn't even reach this topic, but what I think needs to happen in our game, especially if we talk about growing the game, which includes bringing younger coaches in, because we do have a lot of greats that are starting to retire. It's cyclical, right? It's going to keep happening. You cannot have an umpire that's going to let somebody who's an established coach at a top 20 program get in your face and scream at you and berate you when they don't like that you're calling illegal on their kid, or they don't like that replay call, or they don't like that, and not toss them, and then toss somebody else who's younger or maybe at a no-name school.
By the way, that happened. I'll say this: that happens in a lot of all different sports.
It happens all the time.
Yeah.
I don't want anyone to think that's. I'm just being honest. Like,
yeah.
Not the right way to handle it. And again, the problem is that we can't hide anything anymore in our sport because everything's on ESPN in some capacity. It's just there. Like, there's always going to be people that can pull video up, this and that. And that's what's been driving me nuts is, like, again, we're going to talk about, we want to follow these rules and we do these rules, what's best for our sport. We don't treat it, like, come on. I literally sat and watched postseason softball the last 2 weeks in person and saw people doing things that she got tossed for, and she didn't even make a scene.
Didn't even curse.
I just sit there and I'm like, so what are we telling our athletes, that you have to go play for school XYZ and you can do whatever, but if you play for this school, you're gonna have your coach get tossed and they try to have your back? Like, that's crappy. I just don't like that. No,
that's fair. I like this. This is we can expand on this on the Goler and Trout podcast that we're going to create now. This is,
what are we calling it?
Is this what at the group? Because I've heard of the famous group chats that you two are a part of. I'm not going to mention other names on it, but who are in it. Is this kind of how the group chats are about usually?
Yeah, it tends to be like that. I think you can speak a little more freely.
I understand.
I just am passionate about that because I feel like if we are going to keep trying to grow the game, then we have to do our job to hold everybody to the same standard in any capacity. So it's hard.
And why aren't we allowed to fight for our kids? And the stuff
I want to be spicy and have some body.
I do think it's interesting. I do think assistants get quicker hooks. I'm not saying that because you're here.
Yeah.
I've seen that across the board where assistants get a quicker hook than head coaches. And that's, to your point, Goler, maybe that's another example of, oh, you're just an assistant, get out of here, versus a head, right?
And you know what? We've had umpires that have said to my assistant before, like, you know what? I do not like it when assistants come out. Okay. Like, that's fine. So, he tells me that, and I'm like, well, then I guess I'll be the one doing it, but that's fine. You know what? But it's not a rule. So, like, that's a personal preference. Make it a rule. We've made everything else a rule. Why not add that? But I don't know. I mean, that's fine.
All right, I got people in the chat agreeing with you both on the obstruction. Cora and Usher saying, back in the day, we were taught to own, block the bag. I think it takes away from the game. Now, in fairness, the reason this was put in place is that I think they were trying to avoid collisions, because this is, but I felt like it was more inspired by baseball, because we saw a lot more of it on baseball than softball, but I think they wanted to apply it to both sports, because I don't remember as many collisions in softball than there was in baseball.
That was my point. I don't remember it being such an issue where it became a safety thing where we needed to make this rule, this unenforceable rule, by the way, inconsistently enforceable rule, where, maybe at the plate, but even then, I think I'm with you. It's more baseball that you see like somebody coming in and trucking the catcher, which again, they do have that rule now where if you do, blow somebody up, blow a fielder up as a base runner, you do get ejected. So why do we need both of them then? Because they kind of, to me, they kind of cover each other a little bit, but one of them's easier to enforce. That being said, I don't think any kid should be ejected without replay, but
I like it. All right. I agree. Let's talk about some of the matchups here in the next couple nights here. And I want both your thoughts here. And I'm going to start actually with the Northwestern game versus UCLA coming up here in a few minutes. I know I got your thoughts on that earlier, Trout. I want to start with you then, Goler, on this one. What are you looking forward to seeing here in UCLA and Northwestern here in this elimination game on a Friday? Elimination game on Friday, not Saturday like normal in the new format.
I know. By the way, incredibly jealous having been in that previous format and how hard it is and all of that they got it. But I'm really happy that we changed the format. It needed to be done. So, well, you have Cardiac Cats, right? Who I still stand by. Best super regional was theirs, like
against Arizona State, absolutely.
And I mean, that's probably the best
midnight special.
I'm so upset. It sucks that the country kind of missed out on seeing it because of the timing, But I mean, you've got I think you're going to get exactly what Danielle Williams has done every single game that you hear about. She's just steady Eddie, and to me, it's a little bit more of, as Lou used to tell us, I think UCLA got their bike stolen. They have to get their bike back. She used to tell us that. And the first time she told us that, by the way, we left the huddle and somebody's like, what does that even mean? And, but now being a coach, I understand what it means. But I don't know. I mean, I think UCLA will come out guns blazing because I do not think that was the result they wanted. I don't know. Not that Texas is not a superb team right now. They're definitely playing their best ball at the best time, but you can't tell me anybody in the country expected that score, probably UCLA included. And so I don't know. I think it's going to be a matter of who plays the cleanest ball, like it typically is in the World Series. And I do think you're going to have to score in multiple innings in this game tonight to come out on top. I do not see that being where you score in the first and you hold it throughout the entire game. So I guess it comes down to adjustments between first at bat and third at bat, that type of deal, and who's able to do it quickest or the most.
We got to see them in Clearwater, this matchup. So,
yeah. Do you think that plays a factor that they've seen each other? Because both of these matchups, these teams have played each other. Is that a big deal, a little deal, or no deal?
It's only a big deal if you let it be, one way or the other. You can use it as momentum, like you're not phased. But with 18 to 21-year-old kids, it's how do they see it? Do they see we already got beat, or do they see it as, all right, we had a chance for revenge? And I don't know. I think it's a good matchup. I think Northwestern has done well against Pac-12 teams thus far.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's
I think it'll be a good game. I think you'll see Danielle Williams come back with a vengeance.
How tough is she? I mean, she's such a competitor. Like, that Tempe Regional was incredible. What she was able to do there. How tough is she going to be for UCLA?
I mean, that changeup is devastating.
Yeah.
And even I don't know what she did over the offseason, but even from last year, the adjustment she's made on it, it's really deceptive. It's really hard for hitters to see, lefty and righty. Lefty, it's brutal. I think the right-handers are going to have to kind of – that's something you got to think about too, is if you've seen UCLA's lineup, the one they had out yesterday was one right-handed batter. So they're going to probably have to put in some righties. Their first game World Series starting lineup had 8 lefties in it, and Danielle Williams is very tough on lefties. So that's the matchup I'm looking at. That's the matchup I'm like, advantage.
She's nasty anytime you get like that. But you also have somebody on the UCLA side. I mean, they've got 2 that throw gas that also do have good changeups too. So I think certain coaching staffs maybe are drawn to one more than the other. I think velo right now is the big thing that you hear about. You want velo, you want velo, you want velo. I want somebody that can locate 10 out of 10 at whatever their velo is and throw a change up on any count and hide the change. I don't care what speed you throw. Come here, play for me. Games. So that may be part of it too. I think whichever team is able to, it's going to depend on the zone, right? They're going to have to establish it early. If it's going to be all plate, which I don't know why it would be like that. It's never like that. But if it's going to be as wide as the river, I don't know. I mean, it's probably going to depend on which pitcher can take advantage of that too.
Other matchup, Arizona and Oregon State afterwards. We don't know, as we talk, Mariah Maison's status for that game. Laura, you know Arizona, unfortunately, too well. They started their postseason run against y'all in the Columbia Regional. What's your thoughts there? What flipped the switch for Arizona? Because they had, and Coach Caitlin Lowe talked about, they had their adversity, they had their injuries and their struggles, but they've been incredible in this postseason.
So, I mean, we prepped for them. Obviously, they were our opening game of our regional. And what you saw was, they went with Nets, Devin Nets a little bit more than Bowen. And I mean, I don't know her status, but I think she was a little bit hurt earlier in the season. It's just what the numbers look like.
Bowen missed some time. Yeah, they had a lot of injuries. Yeah. Yeah,
and that was the thing, is this was that regional was their first weekend back at full strength. So you saw Bowen kind of take a little bit more. She was hurt. Maybe she, feeling a little bit more rested because she didn't throw as many. And I honestly, she put them on her back. I mean, we scored 3 right away on them, feeling good about ourselves. And up until last night, I don't know if anyone realized this, but every time somebody scored against them, which wasn't much, they scored right away the next inning. So I think that's part of it is, they got some experience. They have almost a whole roster of kids that played in the World Series last year. So I think it was just ups and downs of the season. A little bit of adversity kind of helps you this time of year, especially when you kind of start to see some things click. And they got the bats, and they got 2 tough arms.
What are you looking forward to seeing in that matchup, Goler?
Well, you have to give Bowen the ball. I mean, she's proved it over and over again that she needs to have the ball because she's just competitive. And I will say, having sat behind home plate for her game, Bowen was like literally threading the ball in these tight spots and
shoving it. That's what I call it, shoving it.
That's how they after, and I was like,
she's done a heck of a job with runners on base. I mean, obviously they gave up the home run last night, but other than that, she's been tough as nails.
It's like she thrives.
Yeah, and really a credit to Coach Moat too and that staff too for keeping that group together when that thing could have gone south very easily.
Oh yeah.
But what am I looking for? I mean, again, I think at this point you just want to see players that are hard-nosed players. I think we so often are fighting this battle, like as college coaches. We're trying to always build confidence with our kids. We're trying to teach them that results don't matter, yet you have to have good results to be in a lineup every day, so they kind of matter. So it's like, where do they not? We're trying to teach to work through adversity, like all these things, and that's why I love these loser bracket games, because I think if people are watching it, they're really seeing like the epitome of what it looks like to have to show up after you have because it's an emotional thing when you go to the World Series and you lose that opening game. It's hard because whether you want to admit it or not, you know how hard your path is going to be to potentially get to it. And even, with the format change, it's still hard. Before the format change, it was so brutal to lose and look at how it was going to stack up and be like, all right, I mean, we can do this, but it's going to be hard, You got to figure out, it's there, whether you like it or not. It doesn't mean you can't do it, but there's a reason, statistically speaking, that most teams that lose opening round don't end up in the finals. It's how it kind of plays out. But I don't know. I love these loser bracket games because you get to see what it looks like to have true competitors that come back and can flush that performance. Even if, whether you went 0 for 3 or 3 for 3, you still have to come back and fight for your life. And I just hope that like when younger players watch, they understand like that's what that looks like. When your coaches are telling you that they want you to be mentally tough and to flush it and show up, and that the beauty in our sport is we play 3-game series and stuff like that. Like this is the epitome of it. So I'm just looking forward to coming and seeing people that literally have to fight for their life. Because nothing gives you motivation like knowing you're going to be on a plane going home watching the series on TV.
Especially the new format, you get 2 days. At least they'd give you Friday off if you lost game 1.
Not anymore. Now you're gone quickly there, and hopefully Oregon State's at full strength. I think I would hate for a player like Mariah Maison to not play in a World Series after really helping him get to this point. But a heck of a jobs by Laura Berg and Caitlin Lowe, two of the best in the sport. Two great players that have been great coaches as well.
I'm so jealous of these kids that get to play for them. It's like, give me my eligibility back. Like, I love playing for Lou, but let me go play like for a week for one of these guys and see what I learned from them.
Bergie, by the way, she's like going all Belichick too. Like I asked her about, hey, do you think the momentum in the second inning not scoring changed? Like, no, not at all. And she went like real short with me, and like I've known Laura for a while. I'm like, yeah, that's Bill Belichick.
I thought you were going to say she's going to wear a cutoff sweatshirt.
I think if she could, she would. And talking to her, she's a diehard Patriots fan. For those that don't know, but she's done a heck of a job with a young roster. They're like freshmen and sophomores. It's kind of insane.
And they had a 10-game losing streak at some point.
Yeah, had a rough stretch.
To get your team bounced back from that. They did win 2 out of 3 with Arizona, didn't they?
Yes, they won 2 out of 3. Yeah, that was in Corvallis. So they do know matchup. But again, Maison was a big part of that. So that's to me, that's the X factor. And
if you watch any game from Arizona around that time, they look like 2 different teams right now. So
yes.
But again, what Oregon State has done to get to this point is also, you got to say something about that.
Didn't Lauren Lappin get thrown out in the Columbia Regional?
Oh yeah, and that's
another example.
That was also miscommunication by the umpires.
Tell her that they gave them a warning. I was so fired up in the stands about that. I watched it happen.
And then if you saw the replay of the kid that got called out of the box, she didn't even step.
Yeah, I was very frustrated about that because I literally said to the people next to me, she's going to get thrown out because they did not tell her that she got that Lowe got a warning.
See, this is. We got gold. We got gold here. This Goler Trout podcast idea.
Well,
I don't know.
Like you got to tell us because that rule change where you don't each get your own warning. It's combined. Like,
and that's a huge game for her team that she didn't get to be a part of. That was like early in the game, second inning or something.
Yeah, it was bad.
That's tough. And now Caitlin Lowe has to go coach third.
Is that what happened?
I think so. I think she had to go coach third.
Wow, I didn't think about that aspect of it.
She just casually walked. She's fine. She casually walked over there and did it.
She's cool as ever. She was cool as ever. Yeah. But I mean, that was miscommunication by the umpires.
That was real bad.
Yeah, Mike Condrea called Caitlin Lowe a rock star on TV. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, he was like proud dad. It was adorable.
I know. It was crazy. It was pretty wild. Quick thoughts before we go. Saturday, OU Texas. Can Texas pull off this upset again? What's your thoughts on both of you there? ABC, by the way, ABC game.
ABC. Everyone gets to see Bedlam. Everyone has that channel.
Yeah. I'll let Trout go.
I mean, Texas is hot right now, and that's the most important thing in this sport is being hot when it matters. And right now, it matters. This is anything can happen. Another team that had, would they lose 6 games at Clearwater?
Yeah, 0-6.
Again, that's part of their season, part of their story, part of the file in the back of their head, the things they remember. And then honestly, Fayetteville getting through that. Did you see the crowd there? So the crowd there, is going to be obviously all Oklahoma, and that's going to be one thing. But I think if anyone can do it on that day and that moment is Texas. Pitching is obviously going to be a big factor. It's not going to be any secrets. It's not going to be any smoke and mirrors. It's going to be executing your pitches. But I'm excited. I think Texas has the confidence. They're feeling themselves. They should be feeling themselves.
So you think it's a tight game?
I think it very well could be. I think as everyone has watched Oklahoma at all at any point in the season knows that all it takes is one pitch, one moment to kind of blow things open. But I think, a rivalry in the World Series, I think a good game is in order.
Yeah, I think OU has proved how prolific they are this year, the past couple of years, that where teams crumble against them, in my opinion. I realize I'm not playing on the field, I'm simply watching. But when you play teams like that, it's so easy to, instead of the what's there to lose, let's play hard, it turns into the we have to play tight because once we let one thing slip, it's going. Like, you know what I mean? And that could be simply a solo home run. That could be giving up 2 runs in the first. It can look like whatever, depending on how your team's DNA is and how confident your kids are. You know, if you're a team that does score a lot of runs typically, or maybe you're not. Maybe you're a team that only averages 2 runs a game, and you go down 2-0 against Oklahoma and your kids crumble because the reality is they just don't believe that they're going to be able to hold it. And I think the beauty of Texas being as hot as they are and having that win against them is that I don't think they're going to have that. I really do believe that that's probably one of the best matchups as far as having almost overly confident kids that can have like a shrug mentality because of how they've been playing. And I do think when you face somebody like that, you have to have that to give yourself a fighting chance. Call it false optimism, whatever you want. I don't care. Like, but I think that's what you need to have if you're going to really go up and be able to give yourself a fair shot against it. You go in and try to play tight against them, it's not happening. You've already lost that game. So I would love to see it be close, but I mean,
who do we see? Who do they throw?
which team?
Oklahoma. I think we know who Texas is going to throw. Well, I mean, we don't, but I think we do.
Coming back because I think I don't know. I mean, I think most OU fans want to see the Jordy Ball in the circle, right? Winners bracket game. If you're talking about wanting to give somebody a chance to grow and start that game, like that would be huge for her to do that. But I don't know. None of us really know the ins and outs of it. But Nicole, how many? I can't remember. Is it May? Right? Is that the other pitcher?
Nicole May, yeah.
How many games did she start in postseason?
Well, she pitched game 2 against UCF. I would know. I called it last week. Thanks for the reminder there, Goler. Thanks.
I should know this, but I don't.
And obviously, she was part of last year's World Series team. Obviously, pitched there last year. So she has the most experience.
If she pitched game 2 and she's got the most experience and you're going against your heated rival, maybe I give her the nod. She's probably more than deserved it. You know, she's doing her thing. I guess it just depends on really what that coaching staff is valuing for building and their confidence in their hitters.
Or matchup.
If Ball is fully healthy, which she obviously, they're not going to put her out there if she's not. Nobody's going to do that. Like at some point, they're going to give her that because she is going to need to start growing and experience that. I don't know if it looks like a start or close or what relief, but I don't know. My guess is May. That's what I'm going with.
I like it. I like her.
Wrong.
I like the seats Kat Osterman had at the UCLA Texas game. Did you see that? It was down on the field, and she's getting autograph lines. I mean,
she was there for 2 seconds, and they already had a line.
I know.
Ignoring the group chat, Eric. That's what was happening.
She was ignoring our group chat, and she was busy.
Yeah, I guess it's okay because she was there, but that's the reality of that group chat. You ignore us for big things, and we're not going to let you forget it.
I mean, signing autographs is a legitimate excuse. I think it's valid for her.
Yeah.
I've also known. So she got good seats. You got good seats at the Columbia Regional behind home plate. Is that what I heard?
Yeah, I don't know how I got there, but I was there. I think I got to the point where I was like, someone's gonna have to come move me.
I need to get you both. You got to hook me up to tick. Man, that's pretty good. I mean, I could get you to a broadcast booth, but
I think I missed the snake. I just kind of slithered down, saw him, wanted to go behind. So
fair enough.
Yeah.
Last game, real quick: Oklahoma State, Florida. We haven't talked a lot about Florida, but they've been on a roll. I mean, Trout and I talked about them earlier when they scored 12 on Virginia Tech in their game.
I was there.
Yeah. Oh, you were there. You're everywhere.
Carmen San Diego, man.
I really do. Like, man, you could be like our correspondent or something. Like
that's why I know all these ins though about these umpire things because I'm watching it firsthand.
Go here.
All right. So, what's your thoughts on Florida here? Go to Gajewski and Walton. Obviously, they know each other from the days at Florida when they won a national title together. Both teams, obviously, Maxwell is tremendous for Oak State, Florida. Lugo in relief. We didn't see Hightower on Thursday. Maybe we see her on Saturday, but who knows? Walton's playing this whole underdog role, really up to a T. Give me your thoughts, starting with you, Gola, real quick on that one.
Yes, the offense is coming along. I think that if you're going to look at Florida's numbers all year, Oklahoma State's offense is better. It is. They have the better chance of the ball leaving the park. Doesn't mean it'll happen because postseason is anybody's game, but I think that Florida to win is going to have to be able to put up a couple of runs. I do not see that being a 1 or 2 run game. I think Maxwell is just too good right now. And honestly, I am curious about the Hightower thing because I think they almost panicked when they realized that we all know she throws she throws a screwball a lot, and BT kind of schlecked her a little bit. And I don't know if that changed. You never know. Like maybe that is the kid. Was she wavering in confidence? Does she want the ball again? None of us know that. I would assume she does. She's at Florida for a reason. She's a big player. But, I think whatever they do, I think they learned that you have to mix speeds a lot more. And that's why you saw what they did game 2 and game 3. I actually texted Bosch and I was like, man, your game plan change was top tier, my man, going from game 1 to game 2 and 3, and that's what coaches are supposed to do. So I just think whoever Florida's going to pitch, you're going to have to see a steady amount of off speed. Early, often, hitters counts, all of that. But I also think they're going to have to put up probably 4+ runs to win this game. So I have to see if they can get people on base and have the big hit. It's the name of the game, right? Have the big hit.
The BFH.
Trout, you notice how Goler's just dropping names, big names, just dropping them there, just like on a hat.
Really trying to get invited back again, so I'm just going to keep doing it. I was Trout's maid of honor, in case anybody else wants to know that. Like, I can keep going.
So that name drop's not going to get you very far.
Give me your thoughts on Oak State, Florida there.
I think, both teams have a trio. Florida may even have some others that they're throwing people that I'd never seen.
Galbraith, the freshman's been the one that's kind of pitched the last couple of games there. Lugo's been more of a reliever. Trilacek is a lefty reliever. And then Hightower's been really their ace for most of the year.
So they got a handful. But even Oklahoma State, they have a few. So when you're a hitting coach, you're trying to prepare. When you have that situation, who you're going to get. That's a little easier. Doesn't mean you can go in there and execute. But exactly what you're going to get, and you can prep your team for that. They have to go in and execute, but you have to, you kind of know what you're going to get. The answer to the test are there. You just got to remember them. You got to go in there. You got to do it. When you have a handful of pitchers, maybe that is, the benefit to Florida, where Oklahoma State doesn't know who they're going to get. So they're kind of prepping for who they think they're going to get, and then maybe Florida throws somebody else out there. And when that happens, you'll see somebody, a pitcher, that you're not used to, kind of just shoving it and, eating up innings. And I think that comes from hitters. Just that's not who they prepared for. So they got to make those adjustments. And they got to make them a little quicker. So I think the advantage is Florida because they do have multiple arms. They're, they had an uphill battle. Oklahoma State has they've been at home. They're kind of still at home. And Florida's kind of had to go through it. They've had to get their offense going. Like I said, when we're talking about Arizona, being hot now is what matters. I think if they can stay hot, they got the advantage. Offensively, they can stay hot, they got the advantage for sure. But I'm hoping that one's a good game. I think it will be a really good game.
I want a back and forth offensive firework game today from somebody.
Oh, yeah.
A 9-8 game. That's what I'm wanting from somebody.
Yes, back and forth, like you score.
Yeah, like, let one be a pitcher duel. That's fine, but give us something where it's a lot of fireworks, but it's close game.
Pitching coaches hate that. They like to hang that zero up after the offense scores.
The coach sitting on the couch, i.e., me, wants to see it. So.
Oh, I want to see offense as well.
Yeah.
2 offensive mind people, 1 offense. I'm shocked.
Yeah.
I tell you. So Oklahoma State, Florida will be the Saturday night game. They're underway. Northwestern and UCLA just got underway. And by the way, Northwestern's the home team, the designated home team. UCLA is the designated visiting team. And UCLA is about to take the lead right away. 1-0. There you go.
They got their bike back.
You might get your offense right now. So we're gonna end the show. We went a little longer because I underestimated both of you. You two were tremendous. I'll talk to both of you off the air. We're gonna have to get you both back on here during the World Series because I've noticed you both have opinions. You got over that shyness.
I think one of us tweets them more than the other, but I'm happy to share if you want.
Fans happy.
And then in return, I got to try to get in this secret group chat mystery historical. No, is that only players only, right? Former players only.
If you are not blue, if you're green, you can't be in it.
You got an iPhone, Eric.
Gotcha. Understandable. Fair enough. Fair.
You can join. You can join. I just don't know how that works. Does it work? Can you still group chat?
Yeah, you can add people. I'm just teasing. But honestly, thanks for letting us be our authentic selves. We appreciate it.
I loved it. This was fantastic. You two are my favorites. And we'll definitely work it out. We'll try to get during this World Series. We'll try to get you both on either together, separate, all the above. Trout Goler demanded you stuck around this fall. So.
Yeah.
She only agreed. She said she would only come on if you stuck around.
I saw the timeline and I was like, is she exiting when I come on? I'm not doing that. So
I'm not doing that. This is my only chance. I haven't seen you since regional, so
I know, Eric. We're 2 hours away, and we have to come on this to see.
Well, I'm glad I could get you two together. Then that's good.
I'm gonna say what I say every time in postseason if I'm watching. I just hope all the teams have fun.
I hope everyone has a great time and everyone does their best, and nobody gets hurt, and the umpires make all the great calls.
Yep.
Very good. All right, that's Laura Trout, Alisa Goler, two of the Georgia greats. Coaches, Laura Trout, associate coach at Illinois, Alisa Goler, head coach at Western Illinois. Thank you to everybody that's tuned in. A lot of people tune in and questions. This was fun. We'll do this again. We'll keep it on In the Circle SB for all the latest details on that. Enjoy this World Series games tonight and Saturday. We'll talk to you on Sunday. Everybody, take care. Talk to you soon. This has been In the Circle.